words of wisdom for the kids out there?
Drink plenty of fluids on a hot day and get high in the music, not the drugs.
Hello again, all you winners and losers out there. Welcome back to Take the Points. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Fat Sam. Joining me, as always, the world famous T-Bone and our counselor and chief enforcer, Joey Guns. Gentlemen, a new week is upon us. Let's get right to it. Okay, let's start off with what happened last week. And we had some good picks, we had some bad picks. But let's go right into the Minnesota-Tennessee. All right, T-Bone.
Yes.
I was high on Minnesota all week.
You were.
Started off, I said 2.5, that's a gift.
Yes.
And I think you laughed at me.
I did.
You said, there's no way.
I laughed heartily.
Tennessee, and then you made me think about it a little bit, and I said, Tannehill's playing great. How can they stop Derrick Henry? But I just loved that Minnesota game. I thought they were due. I thought Cousins had played poorly. I said, this is the week he turns it around. This is the week, and I said repeatedly, this was my pick of the week, I said they win this game outright.
You did, and I was taking the other side of that simply because Minnesota looked like just terrible for the first game. They looked bad the second game. They had no run defense. So, of course, I thought Derrick Henry was going to run for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Makes all the sense in the world.
Which he did. However, he did it too late in the game, and it ended up Tennessee only won by a point. So that took out my score, so I had really no choice.
So, again, early on in the week, if you remember, I liked Minnesota plus 2.5. And then the more we talked about it, the more I said, well, I actually think I like Minnesota to win this game outright, and that was what I bet. So I took the Minnesota money line.
Yes.
So when I was watching the game, and it's coming down to it, and I was like, there's no way Gostkowski kicks a 6th field goal from 58 yards, whatever it was, 57 yards. It didn't make a difference in the points because they only lost by 1, but that money line bet that I put out there didn't quite come in. So that was a winner and a loser for me. And I think you took Tennessee, and I think that busted one of your parlays.
It did. I put money on them straight up, and then I also put them in a parlay. And, of course, because of that, both of them lost. So, unfortunately, this one burned me in the end, but so are the breaks.
Perfect example of how you can be right and how you can be wrong in the same exact game.
Yeah, for sure.
Which makes it difficult. But let's move on. Just talk about one that we both really loved and that we both came in great for us. And that was Tampa Bay at Denver. Tampa Bay minus 5.5. It just seemed too good to be true.
It did. And the thing of it is, though, Tampa Bay's defense was so darn good that I didn't think they could be stopped, especially by a quarterback for Denver that is mediocre at best. Second string, the starter got hurt. He's out there hoping for the best, and Tampa Bay's just too strong up front for him.
You can't. I know that Tom Brady hasn't been perfect this year. I know there was a lot of speculation that out of the gate, it was going to be him and Gronk and Evans and Godwin and the Arians air show, and they were just going to dominate everybody. I think they've been off to a slow start, but I do not sleep on Tampa Bay because I think they're putting it together.
Their offense is starting to come around now that Brady's getting more comfortable. You can tell.
And Denver was just, the injuries. Talk about bad luck for a team. Injuries piling up there. This is nothing against Driscoll, but Driscoll's not Tom Brady.
But the funny thing was a lot of people were saying Tom Brady did not play well.
You said that. I said that too.
In Denver. That? And, it makes sense. That's his history. But at the same time, you knew he was kind of hungry to get that win in there and get out of there. So
that was a great pick. We both loved that one. And then finally, let's just look back at one we also both loved and didn't pan out so well. And, that was Arizona minus 5.5.
Again, another one where I had them paired with Tennessee, so I thought Arizona was going to completely shellac Detroit into submission, being that Detroit has no secondary whatsoever, and Arizona, Kyler Murray runs for at least 1-2 touchdowns every game. I really thought this was going to be a runaway for Arizona, and it was going to be an easy win. but I was oh so wrong.
This was one of those games where I listened to too many people, I think. And I believe the hype that Detroit was going to get killed, Kyler Murray was going to have his way with him, Patricia was going to be on his way out. But I think, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong here, but when they played last year, I think, didn't that game end in a tie? Or it was really close where I think I got that game wrong last year too, Detroit and Arizona. But needless to say, we both loved Arizona, we both jumped on it, and we both
Paid the price.
paid the price for that,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately.
But going forward next week, I like him again, so we can talk about that one a little bit later.
Kyler Murray's going to be a great pro. I mean, he's a great pro right now, and he's going to have a lot of exciting, high-scoring games. This was one that we thought was going to be that way, and it just didn't work out. Okay, so Thursday night game. Okay, Thursday night games.
The Battle of the Beatons.
The Battle of the Beatons. Yeah, we could say they're usually hard. They're hard to bet and they're hard to figure. Okay, because we're working on short rest. Typically, the slate isn't the best teams that are out there. So let's talk Denver at the Jets, and I'm going to try to keep this simple because it doesn't make any sense. But sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith. Okay, so today, as I was driving home, I saw a dead fox on the side of the road. And I said to myself, I said, Fat Sam, you got to take the Jets.
Just because you saw a dead fox.
I'm going to tell you right now, okay, this is my reasoning behind it. 90% of the money...
Is there any correlation to that?
Wait a second, Sam. Isn't that the fox you hit driving home from the bar last night?
I think what I'm trying to say is that even a dead animal on the side of the road, it reminded me of the Jets. Let's just say that, okay? There's no good reason to take the Jets, all right? 90% of the money's coming in on Denver, but I'm just going to say this. The Jets have a professional quarterback, Sam Darnold. He's a proud man. Adam Gase may be on his way out.
And Denver's starting a third-string quarterback.
Denver is starting somebody off of the practice squad.
Their number one receiver's hurt.
I'm just saying it's going to be the Jets, okay? You don't even need the points. Take the Jets, money line, and be surprised, shocked, thankful, happy
Mildly
when that
amused.
comes in. Wildly amused, confused. How did the Jets win this game? They have no business winning this game. That's why they're going to win this game.
I do agree with you, too. I feel it's their turn finally to get a win. I don't think Denver has quite the team that can travel and play well against them, so I think the Jets are a good.
They're not going to have many wins this year.
No,
I'm
exactly.
telling you that right now. This is one that they...
This may be the only win that they have, to be honest with you.
Okay, so let's move on to some games with some meat. I know that this week you are in love with Jacksonville at Cincinnati.
I am.
Tell us about it, Tebow.
Well, okay, so the question, it really boils down to this. Are we going to see the Jacksonville team that week one went into Indianapolis and beat them in their house, or are we going to see the Jacksonville team that went to Miami last week and looked like garbage? Because I was all on the Minshew mustache mania, and of course, to my surprise and to my chagrin, Miami turned around and played extremely well and ended up beating them down. So I'm not quite sure which Jacksonville team we're going to get this time. But I will say this. What I do know is Joe Burrow is going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL someday. He's currently a good rookie quarterback. He is not afraid to throw the ball down the field. I think Cincinnati has one of the highest passing rate in the league right now. And so I, in my estimation, feel that Cincinnati, even though they are favored by 3 at home, I think they can actually walk away from this game winning by at least 6, if not more.
T-Bone, you know as well as I do that I was a big fan of the Red Rocket.
Huge.
Okay?
Huge.
I loved Andy Dalton. I loved him in Cincinnati, and I am not a Bengals fan.
Is anybody a Bengals
Well,
fan?
they are out there. They're out there. Remember, we had our friend Kelly, and
This is
there were
true.
some other people. So they do have fans. And God bless you folks out there. But I did like Andy Dalton, but I can say this about Joe Burrow. He's added a spark to that team.
He did.
They play with some fire.
Some heart.
They play with some heart.
Yeah.
I think they play like a team, which is something that maybe they didn't have as much in the past. I'm not laying any blame on anybody. But I think Joe Burrow is...
so you're saying he's going to be enough to beat Jacksonville?
Well, no, I don't know about that. But they do have more weapons in Jacksonville. I like A.J. Green.
What about Mixon?
Mixon's talented.
I haven't seen much of him this year.
They've been using a lot of Bernard too, but I think they have some solid weapons on that team.
Okay.
And I think that they are going to be better than they were. I think they win 5 or 6 games this year, and I think this is going to be one of them.
Well, before you two get too comfortable with that pick, the line has moved,
Oh no.
and they're only favored by 1.5.
What?
Okay, see, so probably there's a lot of others thinking like us. The smart money and the dumb money is going on Cincinnati. That scares me a little, but
I don't care. I'm sticking with Cincinnati. I think they're going to win by at least 6. I just feel like Jacksonville is not going to show up.
it's a safe bet. I mean, even at -3, if it's at -1.5, geez, I say take it. Take the money line bet. I think that's a safe bet.
All right.
All right, moving on. My game of the week is Chargers at Tampa Bay. I know we've already talked about Tampa Bay. I've already told you that I'm high on Tampa Bay. But this isn't going to be about Tampa Bay and Tom Brady and their stifling defense. I think it's more...
Even though we know that's going to be a big part of it.
It's going to be a big part of it. And they may score 57 points in this game. The reason is what in the hell is up with San Diego?
I would love to know myself.
Talk to me about that. So Herbert comes in. He doesn't even know he's going to play. He gets thrown into the Lion's Den.
Against the returning Super Bowl champions.
Super Bowl champions. Mahomes, who's going to be an MVP multiple times in the league, a multiple champion in the league. He gets thrown in. They seem to come together and gel and actually should have won that game.
Yep.
Okay, which we agree they should have won that game, and he looked fantastic.
He did.
And all of a sudden, the San Diego Chargers look a lot better than people thought.
L.A. Chargers.
L.A. Chargers, yes. So, but then came last week, and
Against my lowly Panthers.
against your lowly Panthers. That's a game we didn't talk about, which was another game that I think even you said stay far away from the Panthers.
As far away as possible.
And they actually went in there and looked quite good. So I don't know what to think of San Diego, but I know this: they're traveling east.
L.A.
I'm going to make that mistake. Okay,
Sam needs to get
for
on
all my
the
fans
LA
out there and friends, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to make that mistake often. Maybe some of you do the same. It is the LA Chargers. No offense to the fans of the Chargers. I actually knew one once. So the LA Chargers, they're traveling east. They're going to go into Tampa, and I just think they're going to lose by 20 points. That's my prediction.
20.
I know that the
line's
line's 7.5.
right?
I don't like the 7.5. I wish it was kind of. At first, I said, you know what? I wish it was 6.5. But then I thought about it, and I was like, gosh, they're going to lose by 14, 15, 20, probably easy. That is one. When we go this week to put in our bets, I'm probably going to do an alternate point spread on that and take a bigger minus. I think I'll probably tease that to minus 13.5.
Really? Even with Chris Godwin being out?
I think so.
So you think this is the week that Evans and Gronk and I
It's
don't
all-
know
it's
which
all gonna
running
come
back,
together.
pick one.
It's all going to come together, and the Chargers are going to be hapless and hopeless.
This to me, here's my concern with this game. So being 7.5, I could see where the Chargers completely get shut down, score maybe 7 points, something like that. But at the same time, Tampa Bay only scores 14, 15 points. And that's what worries me about this line a little bit. Now, I could be very wrong, but because these teams aren't used to playing each other. You know, NFC South versus AFC West, they don't play each other that often. Typically, that means high scores for the teams. But in this case, I have this weird feeling that maybe San Diego, Los Angeles. The defense for the Chargers actually shows up, and Tom Brady looks like he did in Week 1 versus Week 3.
No, he's not going to.
You don't think?
No.
At all?
No.
So, okay. Well, I get that. I can understand that. But I still am a little bit worried about that line. But I still will go with Tampa.
So that's a game that we both agree on. And talking about big lines and
the biggest.
We're moving on to another one, which I think is going to have a lot of interest, especially in this area.
Isn't this Joey Guns' favorite?
This is the silent Joey Guns, his pick of the week. So we'll let Joe talk about that in a second. But let me just say this before we pick Joe's brain on why and who he loves in this. Monday night's game was fantastic. Kansas City at Baltimore.
Yes.
I think it was. It was not the shootout that everybody expected, but I think it
started out.
It did start
Baltimore
out
started out very hot, and then something happened.
Something happened.
He got Mahomes.
Yes, Andy Reid. I think can game plan better than anybody except Belichick. But I was kind of shocked at the final score of that game.
Yeah.
And
but at the same time we shouldn't, because if you look at the last 2 times they've played, Kansas City does this to them every time. They beat them like a damn puppy.
And while sometimes our memories are long and sometimes they're short, I went back to how they struggled at LA Chargers the week prior, and was like, gosh, are they that good? If they had this much trouble going into Los Angeles against the Chargers, and now they're coming into Baltimore.
Right. I thought a much closer game, point-wise.
So, on that note, Joey Guns, tell us what you think about Baltimore at Washington at 13.5.
Well, guys, I think, the way Lamar Jackson took responsibility for that loss and just said, we need to improve, and they're kind of our kryptonite. I think that's gonna fire up that team. Okay, that team is fired up. They're not traveling far. They're playing the Washington football team, which we know is probably one of the worst teams right now in the NFL. So I think, that being said, I think there's a really, really good chance they're going to cover those 13 points. And so,
but even with Washington having a front four that is exceptionally good, you think that they can actually cover that big of a spread?
I think they can, because I think they're motivated, especially after that last week's beating that they took.
You don't think it's going to be like an emotional letdown and they're going to be coming in, emotionally spent? The team's tired. It's a short week.
Anything is possible, T-Bone. Anything is possible.
So I will say this. I understand why everybody would get on Kansas City. Baltimore. But where I struggle, and anytime there is a line that to me is more than 12, I worry about a backdoor cover. Because I could see Baltimore jumping up on these guys, and then, of course, they start to play soft defense, and then here comes Washington football team, and they score points they shouldn't be scoring in the fourth quarter, and they end up covering because it's a 13.5-point spread, and it ends up being a win for Baltimore by 12 points.
And if I had $1 for every time that happened, I wouldn't be betting anymore.
You got that right.
But unfortunately, it's a problem that continues to haunt me, is the backdoor cover.
So let me tell you what Fat Sam thinks.
Fat Sam.
I want to know if the team from Washington can just put a potato on the side of their helmet so we can call them the Redskins again. Okay? Can they do that? Can they just put a potato on the side of their helmet? We can call them the Redskins, and nobody will be offended.
I think they've changed the name of that potato,
I think
Sam.
they have to.
Do we call them the Russets?
The Russets, whatever. We can call them the Russets, but I hate saying the Washington football team. And I can tell you this, I'm mad at the Washington football team because I did have them last week beating Cleveland.
I'm still calling them the Washington Russets no matter what.
I'm telling you, isn't that the easiest thing to do? Just put a potato on the side of your helmet. And then we can all just go on as we've gone on, okay? But nobody's going to do that. So, but that's an idea, Mr. Schneider. Just
if you're listening.
If you're listening, I know you are out there. So this is a lot of points, but I agree that I think Lamar bounces back. Stranger things have happened.
You're comfortable with 13.5 points given that?
No, but I don't. I can't. Who can take Washington this week? So I have to kind of agree.
Could you not see that game end up being a 14-point game, and then
I can see him losing by 30.
I mean, I just can't get on with that 13.5.
Can't you see though somehow Washington kicking a field goal as time expires and somehow winning this game, and then everybody talking about how
Washington winning?
Yeah, I'm just saying, stranger things have happened.
Or even covering.
Covering I could get. Winning? No. They won't.
If they won this game, though, and I go back to a few years ago when you remember we talked about, I think it was Buffalo was playing at Minnesota.
Yes.
They lost it week 1, 63-2.
Yes.
And then week 2, they got blown out 38-7, and they're going into Minnesota, who was firing on all cylinders. And
factually
we were
correct.
like, the line was like 24.5, and it was just like
plus
that's
600.
not even enough. Right.
Plus 600.
And somehow they ended up winning that game. So if something like that happens, and everybody will be talking about, oh, Baltimore's overrated, and Lamar's not going to be the quarterback we thought he was, and there's problems with Harbaugh, and blah, 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 blah. I can see something like that happening. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Like I said, I think they win quite handily. It's a bounce-back game, but all I can say is it's a short week for Baltimore.
I think Mark Andrews goes off big in this game.
I think Washington's 31 against tight ends.
Yeah.
So if they can somehow get that clicking again, which I think they will, it's basically a home game for the Ravens. You know there's not going to be. I think you went to a Washington game last year, and I think you were the only people there in the stands. Mm-hmm. But it's basically a home game for the Ravens, and gosh.
Well, if you really like the Washington football team, you're getting 5-1 odds on them winning the game outright.
Is that worth throwing $1 at? Is that worth throwing $5 at? I don't know. 5-1?
Not my money.
No, like I said,
I'll throw your money at it.
I think they were 5-1 against Cleveland, and I like those chances a lot better last week. And I think they lost terribly. They had my hopes up though, and then just Washington became Washington.
Washington does what Washington always does. They lose.
Okay, so our next segment, we're going to have a lot of fun with this one because you should have fun when you're picking games and playing games. And this is going to be our parlay pick of the weeks, where you can put a couple games together and maybe put $1 or $2 on them and win $1,000. And Joey Guns, he took a shot on that last week. He did a 7-teamer that he put $1 on, and I think he was going to win something like $5,000 on it. But Joe, why don't you tell our faithful listeners out there about your parlay pick for last week?
Yeah, Sam, so I fell into the trap of listening to professionals. That happens to everyone occasionally. There's been a lot of talk about the defenses not performing so well and how the NFL or the sports books have been losing so much on the overs because everyone was taking the overs and everyone was just, destroying the sports book. So the sports book had to move these overs real high, the over-under spread real high, and the professionals said, listen, you got to start taking the unders because these overs are, they're just crazy.
It makes sense.
And so I said, well, I looked at 7 games where I was convinced. I had to take the under. Okay? And
overs are just too much.
Too much.
Everything
too high.
pointed in that direction.
Absolutely. So I'm sitting at Waffle House in Charlestown, West Virginia. Okay, and I'm explaining to T-Bone and Fat Sam
who was partially hungover.
Yeah, well, there was a lot going on that morning at the Waffle House. We saw some things you can't unsee. But back to what we're talking about here. I explained to them why we had to take the unders. Well, as it turns out, all 7 games that I picked were over. So that's what you get for listening to the professionals.
You went how many out of 7?
All of them,
you went
7 out of
7 for
7. 7 for 7, but the wrong way. And if you know, that's just as mathematically improbable as going 7 for 7 the right way.
The statistical odds of that happening were exponential.
It was an astronomical feat.
You pulled it off.
So, congratulate me later. But for this week,
this sounds like an episode of Seinfeld.
The moral of this story.
This is basically an episode of Seinfeld.
Opposite of Joey Guns.
Yes. But if you're going to listen, here are my picks for this week. And take this to the bank. Green Bay, Atlanta, I'm taking the over.
I think that's a good pick.
To hell with the professionals. I'm taking the over. 57.5 is the points total. I'm taking the over on that.
Rodgers could score 60 on it.
I was going to say.
Yeah. And I'm going to parlay that, with New England, Kansas City. I'm taking the over. Taking the over again. Because last week I took the under. I got killed. I'm going over this week. Both of those games. That's my parlay pick of the week. Fat Sam, what do you got for us?
I want to know the other 5 games you're going to do. Make it a 7-game parlay.
Lesson learned. Lesson
So
learned.
you throw your dollar on it, it actually... I don't know what's worse, going 0 for 7 or going 6 for 7. Maybe that's a debate for another.
It hurts
another
either
day.
way.
But yeah. So I've seen some parlay luck. I've seen T-Bone himself.
I've been
with
pretty
some
good with
parlay
parlays
magic.
recently.
He's got a pair, I'll say that. And but before I get to my parlay picks, I want to say this: the hash brown bowl cannot be discounted there at Wawa's. That was quite delicious, and they know how to scramble an egg. I'll just say that. Okay.
I'll tell you what makes it though is the cigarette ashes that drip in while they're making it. That's really what sets it
Well,
out.
it adds to the flavor.
A little extra tar is good for COVID prevention.
And
Okay.
the twangy ambiance of West Virginia just adds to it.
All right, so you want a long shot parlay? You got a couple dollars in your pocket, and you need to spend it on something. You want something more than a lottery ticket? Better chances than a lottery ticket. This is what you want to take. I'm going to give you 2 teams that, well, not a sure bet. I think will be a good bet. So, my parlay pick. Take the Raiders money line and the Patriots money line.
Oof.
Raiders are plus 135. New England's plus 240. Listen.
I like half of that one. I like the Raiders pick.
Listen. Kansas City's great. They may go 15-1. They may go 14-2. I don't think they're going to go 16-0.
No, I agree.
Okay. They're not going to lose to the Chargers again. They play them again. They're not going to lose to the Broncos. But, as I said earlier, as I alluded to earlier in this podcast, nobody game plans better than Andy Reid than Bill Belichick.
Right.
So, Mahomes and company, they had a great win at Baltimore. It's a short week. Are they going to lose in Kansas City? Probably. But at almost 2.5 to 1, take it. And parlay with the Raiders. Okay?
So you like Scam Newton and the points.
No. I say take New England, money line, no points. outright
Really?
To win. Okay? This is the parlay
To win.
long shot. Yes. Take
Wow.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying put $1,000 on it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
I'm saying that if you wanted a long shot parlay chance
Okay.
that New England at Kansas City, I think, has a good chance of winning. They play Kansas City tough.
Yep.
Belichick's going to come up with something.
Kansas City could be down after beating Baltimore.
Yes.
So I understand the logic.
And then I'm on the Raiders only because as much as I love the Bills, as much as I love their resurgence, as much as I love Josh Allen, can't you just see them making a mistake somewhere? And why not in Vegas? The Raiders stood up the Saints there in Vegas, and the Bills aren't the Saints.
And what scares me about the Bills is even though they have a really good defense, they continue to let teams back in the fourth quarter.
Right.
I can't understand it. They let Miami come back and lose by, 3?
Josh Allen still makes mistakes. So if you take these, and we don't have the parlay calculator up, but at those lines, plus 240 and plus 135, I'll just say that this is probably going to be a plus 800, an 8-1 parlay bet on those two teams.
Yep.
Put $10 on it, make $80. That's what Fat Sam is telling you need to do this week.
T-Bone, over to you.
All right, so my picks for this week, again, not one you would normally want to go to, but we got to admit, Chicago is 3-0. They're playing with Foles Magic now, so I think they have a chance because Trubisky's on the bench that they could actually go into Indy. And I'm even recommending to go ahead and take the points with that, 2.5 for Chicago. I think they can go into Indy and win that game because Indy has played, let's just say, substandard teams. And even though Indy's playing at home, week 1, Jacksonville went in there and beat Indy at home. I could see them doing it again. So I'm going to say go ahead and take Chicago plus 2.5. And then you want to parlay that with the Houston Texans. And I say that because everybody has to acknowledge, even though Houston is sitting at 0-3, they're desperate. And on top of being desperate, they've played 3 of the best defenses or best teams in the league the first 3 weeks. They lost to Pittsburgh, they lost to Kansas City, they lost to Baltimore. They're now playing Minnesota. So at minus 3.5, I think if you pair Chicago and Houston together, I think that's a winning parlay that's going to bring you some money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Minnesota's just not the right team anymore. They're not a good team.
All I will say about this, if you want my little bit of analysis on this, is that I have not seen, and you're right, Houston's played 3 playoff caliber teams this year.
Yep.
But I haven't seen them stop the run yet. And as far as I know, Dalvin Cook is
very
healthy. So
he's on my fantasy team.
And you know that Cousins can look like the worst quarterback in the league at one point, and then look like an MVP the next week. So that game scares me a little bit. But I know that Houston is a dangerous team too. They're finicky. So like I said, I'm not going to barf on that parlay. Chicago, yeah, I don't know.
I'd probably be more comfortable going with Chicago money line because I actually think they're just going to win outright. But I could also see just taking the points and going with it.
I can see myself following you down this road and then cursing you out.
Like last week.
Like last week and being like, why the hell did you talk me to Arizona? God dang.
Don't listen to me.
Don't listen to, don't listen to any of us. Or listen to us. We'll get it right one of these times, right? We have in the past.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think if you have a couple dollars and you want to try to go the quick and easy route to some quick cash, you might want to consider our parlay picks. All right, so that moves us on to our take the points segment, third and long shot. This is where we're going to take the points, and we think you should too.
Yes.
So, T-Bone, what do you like this week? Whose points are you going to take?
Okay, so don't choke on your beer.
I may.
However, I believe that the one game that has the opportunity for an underdog to win that shouldn't is the Seattle versus Miami game. Yes, I understand that. I understand your reaction. There's a visceral reaction from people when they say, what the hell are you thinking? But let me explain for a minute. Because if you close your eyes, right, and you visualize Fitzmagic, because Fitzmagic is a real thing. And all you've had to do is watch Miami play these first 3 games of the season. And what do? They score points. They score points in bunches, whether they're winning or they're losing. Now, what's odd about this game is you've got, on the other side, Russell Wilson, who obviously playing at an MVP caliber. He threw, 5 touchdowns, I think, both the last 2 games. He's going to get his share of points as well. There's no doubt about that. So what I can tell you is for sure you need to bet the over on this game. And I'm not sure what the over is right now. 54 maybe? 50. Yeah. So bet the over. Just trust me on this one because there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game.
54.5.
Right, 54.5. But also, I want you to strongly consider putting money on Miami to at least cover. Now, I don't believe they're going to win. They're going to lose. That's a given. But I could definitely see Miami losing this game by maybe 4 points or 6 points. But either way, I think if you take the points with Miami, you can take that to the house.
I've only got one thing to say about that. Keep
Oh
on.
no.
Bullshit detective, take precaution.
Not the bullshit detective.
We had to get that in here sometime. So, when I close my eyes and vision where you see Fitzmagic, I see Russell Wilson, who is the real deal. Okay, maybe he goes 38 for 39 and four or five touchdowns. And
So you visualize Fitz tragic.
it's a tough one, but this is the take the point segment, and
But could you see it playing out the way I described?
no. Let's move on to what I really think is the game you need to take the points, and that's Philadelphia plus 6.5 at San
I
Francisco.
just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Well, this is my rationale behind that. Okay, one, San Francisco doesn't have Russell Wilson throwing 4 touchdowns. I think they have somebody off the practice squad. Philly is in desperation mode. Okay, Carson Wentz is on his way out. Peterson's on his way out.
They're not the Philly of old.
They're not the Philly that everybody thought they were going to be.
Right.
But San Francisco is not the San Francisco they thought they were going to be either. Everybody's hurt. Okay, so
But they still put up 36 points against the Giants last week. With backups.
okay, all I got to say, the only word that makes any difference in that sentence you just said is the Giants. Okay, so I think Denver can put up 36 points against the Giants this week. The Giants are terrible. You can't say the Giants. You can't throw out the Giants.
No,
How
but
you
I'm
gonna
just
throw out the
saying-
Giants.
I'm just saying they've got they went to the Super Bowl last year, so San Francisco has a very deep bench of folks that are very good. So this is where I think San Francisco, even though they're hurt, they still play good.
Okay.
The Eagles, not so much.
No,
I'm not impressed with the Eagles.
Take the Eagles plus 6.5. You'll be happy you did. They may win outright.
I think this is Carson Wentz's game where he's going to look terrible and actually get benched. I think it's going to be that bad.
Who was their backup?
Jalen Hurts.
Oh, good lord.
Everybody wants to see the new quarterback, the young guy right out of college.
This ain't the week. No. Carson reminds everybody of why he's the quarterback in Philly, why they kept him and let Foles go. In my opinion, they're a better team than they've shown. And San Francisco was extremely lucky last week that they grabbed the Giants when everybody was hurt. And this week, it's going to be different because Philly's going to come in desperation mode. They need a win. The NFC East is going to be very winnable this year.
You know, teams are in desperation mode because they're losers.
Well,
That's
this is
what
the same logic
Philadelphia
that made me take the Vikings
Philadelphia
last
is
week.
a loser.
And the Vikings in the points last week turned out to be a winner. Not the money line, but the points was a winner.
That stings, Brian.
There's two for you to think of this week. If you're going to take the points, you can take Miami in the points, you can take Philly in the points, and maybe one of them will work out for you. Okay, we want to move on now to our celebrity pick of the week. One thing you might not know about our esteemed panel here is that we have deep connections with a lot of famous and important people. So we got a text this week, and I just want to say that a couple weeks ago, T-Bone, I know that you signed up for Bella Thorne's premium content. You sent her the $100.
I did.
And she didn't come through.
She didn't.
And that was a sad thing because we were all excited about that. I think even Joey Guns was over here asking if you were...
I was disappointed.
But she came through. She texted me this morning.
Bella did.
Bella texted me this morning.
What did she have
She
to
said,
say?
Fat Sam. She said, don't give out my text information, which I can't. I won't do that.
Too late.
I have professional
Discretion.
Thank you, counselor. Professional discretion, and so I'm not going to out her address. But I will say this.
888-7395.
I will say this. Bella is laying 12.5 for the Rams this week.
Laying it down.
Laying down 12.5 for the Rams.
She's covering the spread, or she's laying it down?
She is destroying the spread. She's taking the spread.
Because I didn't see that in my content that I looked at.
What she said to me exactly, her words exactly, were Fat Sam, the Rams are going to win by 12.5. So,
All right. So this is a celebrity pick.
This is our celebrity pick of the week. We're letting it on. This is what we do. It's our special service to you out there, our loyal following. Take the Rams minus 12.5. All right, winners and losers. That's going to do it for this week. Take the points. Hopefully you enjoyed our conversations and maybe got a little tidbit or a nugget that you can take with you to the casino or the book or wherever you're going to have your fun this weekend. But we hope to see you back here. If you want to become a Patreon, the link is below. You can get our premium content. We will go over every single game. Also, there's another level where if you want to become a VIP, then we will go into in-depth analysis over a game of your choosing. So please click below. Also, our PayPal information is below. If you do well this weekend and maybe hit a big one, just remember your friends here. Take the points. Okay? And we'll see you next week.
Hey, children, what does it all mean?